The chapter starts in a dungeon where a man was practically sheeting bricks as a dark figure hovered over him. Desperate, he asked a creature what it was, but Spooky Grandpa, not giving him any notice, just mumbled, "Is not the one either. They're hiding smartly, aren't they? The bright pieces of light." The tension in the air was choking. Spooky Grandpa suddenly felt another presence and turned to see Yogamund, the king of transformation, just calmly standing there like he owned the place. Yogamund came with news, something about the East Island. Spooky Grandpa laughed, knowing it as the land of the Shadow King. He asked Yogamund if he was planning to handle that place. Yogamund told Spooky Grandpa that the rulers had chosen to send their armies south of the island, and he aimed to take it for himself. Spooky Grandpa was both entertained and doubtful to hear this. He then asked Yogamund about the Shadow King. Yogamund grinned and said that if the planner keeps the deal, it'll be okay. Then he revealed the big news that the greatest piece of bright light has been confirmed to be in that place too. That caught Spooky Grandpa's attention. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he said, "You came all this way just to tell me that." But before their plotting could go any further, Spooky Grandpa suddenly froze. He was certain something was wrong about this situation. He then told Yogamund that they had been tricked here. Just then, another figure stepped into sight, showing hostility. Spooky Grandpa watched him closely, then sneered. That guy earlier couldn't possibly hold the power of the bright pieces of light, so why was there a hint of it here? Then he said, "Ah, I see. You plan to block our way." The man's eyes burned with anger as he spoke. "That small island to the east, you mean Korea, don't you?" Spooky Grandpa, ever the cocky jerk, mocked and asked Elwan, "What is he going to do about it?" Yogamund, getting restless, reminded Silad that they didn't have time to waste on no bodies. But Spooky Grandpa wasn't finished. Smirking, he turned back to the Iljuan and challenged him, telling him to try and stop us if you can. That was all it took. The Iljuan rushed, shouting, "I won't let you get away." His attack came quick, but Spooky Grandpa blocked it easily with an ice shield, grinning like this was all a game. As the air around them froze, he prepared to strike back, and when he did, the whole area burst into chaos. Meanwhile, inside the Red Gate, Drippy Woo's shadow army was already defeating these monsters like points in a low-level dungeon, but the boss had the nerve to act tough. This oversized fool took one look at RZ Wu and laughed at him. Jin Wu was nothing but a pest. Or so he thought. Jin Wu just grinned, gave the signal to his shadows, and suddenly the forest started releasing shadow soldiers like a scary movie gone wrong. The shadow army made quite an entrance, holding his minions' heads. The boss, now realizing he messed up worse than a newbie in ranked mode, tried to call for help, but all he got in response was a body flying at his face like a rude delivery service. Jin Wu, standing there like a king watching peasants beg for mercy, hit him with the coldest line, asking the boss to call me small now. Panic hit, and he yelled at his remaining henchmen to do something, anything, but it was already too late. Jin Wu's army was already ripping through them like a hot knife through butter. Tank was out here crushing fools, clearing the path for Jin Wu like an unpaid guard. Seeing his forces getting crushed, the boss finally lost it and charged straight at Jin Wu, thinking he still had main character energy. That lasted all of 5 seconds before Burr and Igris teamed up on him like they were trying out for a WE match. With sliced off an arm, Igris took a leg, and before the boss could even process the loss he just took, Tusk stepped in, showing off his reverse gravity, slamming the guy to the ground like he owed him money. Pinned and beaten, the boss could only watch as Jin Wu casually walked up, looking like death itself, and said, "Now you'll answer my questions. It'll hurt less if you do." The monster, now in its "I regret everything" phase, barely had time to process before its miserable life was ended. Standing over the lifeless body, Jin Wu sighed, thinking how the system still wasn't giving him anything. He muttered to himself about how this had to be some kind of disruption, but he brushed it off, thinking that he'd get his answers sooner or later. Then, reaching into his inventory, he pulled out the key from the cursed random box, the key to Carton Temple. As he looked at it, a countdown appeared, ticking down the time before he could enter. Memories hit him as the thoughts of that dungeon, the nightmare that started all, flooded his mind. But this time things were different. This wasn't the weak, desperate Jin Wu of the past. This was Drippy Wu, the power farmer, and if the system was calling him back, then it better be ready for what was coming. Jin Wu stared at the key in his hand, the countdown ticking down like a time bomb. He wondered if all of this was planned from the very start. Was the system just waiting there expecting him to return? Meanwhile, somewhere deep inside the dungeon, a dark entity sat in the shadows. Hearing Jin Wu's words, it grinned. Whatever was lurking inside Carton Temple was waiting for its rematch. The scene shifts to Jinho, who is sitting in the office, managing business like a wanted corporate boss. He laughs at complaints from the people he sued, calling them whiners. After finishing his work, he leans back, convinced he's eliminated all the slander against Jin Wu. But just as he starts to relax, the man himself appears behind him like a ghost. Jinwoo casually says, "You sure are working hard." Jinho, still getting used to the fact that Drippy Woo moves like a silent ninja, can only think, does this guy even make noise when he breathes? Jinwoo asks if there's been any trouble. Jinho reassures him that everything's running smoothly, and then immediately gets distracted by Jinwoo's outfit. Before he can ask, Junwoo tosses a bag full of magical cores onto the desk, saying, "You said we needed money for the guild." Jinho, seeing that, smiles and says, "Saris won't be an issue anymore." But Junwoo looks at him, puzzled. Jinho reminds him they still need to hire another guild member, which means they actually have to pay someone. Jinho, nodding with fake seriousness, suddenly brings up the real crisis at hand. They need a guild name. Jinwoo, thinking it's something urgent, looks at him, unimpressed, as Jinho dramatically declares, "This is very serious." Jinko starts throwing out the worst names imaginable: Sunu Guild, Wuho Guild, Gingan Guild, like he's running a preschool naming contest. Jinwoo, probably tired of the nonsense, decides to call it Solo Play Guild with the most casual explanation. After all, it's a solo play guild. Jinho stares at him, wondering if that was supposed to be a joke. Before he can question it, a knock at the door interrupts them. Jinho goes to check and is shocked to see none other than Mommy Che herself standing there. She asks if this is Jinwoo's guild office, and Jinho, still processing, nods. But when he asks why she's here, she hits them with the unexpected. She tells him that she wants to join their guild. As they sit down, Jinwoo, still making sure he heard that right, asks her to explain. And with zero hesitation, Mommy Che simply repeats what she had just said. Jinwoo stares at her, completely confused. He wasn't sure what the heck was going on. He asks Mommy Che if the chairman told her to join or if maybe Hunter Choi got tired of her and kicked her out. Mommy Cha shakes her head, saying that's not the case. Jinwoo, now serious, leans in slightly and asks, if that's not the case, then why did she want to join his solo player guild? Mommy Cha blinks, caught off guard by that silly name, and asks if he seriously named it that. Junwoo, unbothered as ever, replies, "Yeah, what's wrong with it? The vice master and I agreed on it." Jinho immediately protests, saying he never agreed to anything, demanding he rethink the names he had suggested. Meanwhile, Junwoo quietly analyzes Mommy Che's pulse, her breathing and her expressions. She's trying to look calm, but she wasn't fooling Jinwoo. Jinwoo questions her contract, pointing out that it's only been 2 years since her awakening, meaning she's still tied to the Hunter Guild. But Mommy Che casually says she has enough money to pay the penalty. Jinwoo, now even more puzzled, wonders why she was so eager that she was even willing to pay a fine just so she could join his guild. He tells her the guild isn't exactly rich, so they can't offer her anything close to what she's worth. Mommy Cha shrugs it off, saying she doesn't need a down payment. Jinwoo narrows his eyes, still not buying it, and asks, "Then why join us? There's nothing for you to gain here." Mommy Cha hesitates, her mind racing. She wasn't sure how to explain the situation to this idiot. She was worried that no matter what she said, it would sound crazy. At first, she was just drawn in because his energy didn't smell like the others, but during the Jeju Island raid, she really thought she was going to die. But then Drippy Woo saved her. The scene shifts to the past, where Mommy Che wakes up in a helicopter after the raid. She, groggy, asks the chairman where they are, and he tells her they've just landed at the Hunters Association, and that she'll be sent to the hospital soon. But Mommy Che's only concern was Janwoo. She asks if he was the one who saved them. The chairman confirms it, and Mommy Cha, still processing everything, thinks, so it wasn't a dream. The memory lingers in her mind of how she barely survived this time, but she was worried thinking about next time. She wonders what if a situation comes where she can't escape death. Back in the present, she struggles to put her thoughts into words, her face slowly turning red. She wasn't sure how to tell Jinwoo that she wanted to stay by his side till the very end without making a fool of herself. Jinwoo watches her, now even more confused. He wonders why Mommy Cha was acting all strange. As Mommy Cha tries to pull herself together, he grows more impatient. He asks her if she was planning to answer him. He can see she's hiding something. Finally, he asks again, and this time Mommy Cha snaps out of her thoughts and quickly says, "I just want to live comfortably. Is there a problem with that?" Jinwoo stares at her, thinking, Mommy Cha is only 22, and being an S rank must be tiring for her. Even though her words don't fully convince him, he can tell there's more to it than that. Mr. Power Farmer watches Mommy Cha closely. He knows the hunters took a beating during the Jeju Island raid, so he gets why she might want to change. But just because she wants in doesn't mean he's handing her a free pass. He told her that if she wants to join, then she has to pass the entrance test. Mommy Cha raises a brow and says, "That wasn't in the recruiting notice." Jinwoo, being the troublemaker he is, shrugs and tells her that maybe the guild vice master made a mistake. It's a new rule. Mommy Cha asks about the test. Jinwoo smirks and told her that she has to beat one of his summons. She narrows her eyes and asks if he thinks that she was that weak. Drippy Woo doesn't even hesitate and tells her that for her, he'll use his strongest summon. That wipes the smugness off her face. They stand up and she asks, "When's the test?" Drippy Woo, never one to waste time, simply says, "Right now." He suggests using the gymnasium at the association and starts thinking, this is the perfect chance to test whether he can use shadow exchange with two people. He steps in close, his voice low, wrapping his arms around her. He told her that she didn't have to leave as he'd use a shortcut. Bro was flirting, and he wasn't even aware of that. Mami-cha barely has time to process before he adds, "We just have to stay together for a." And just like that, darkness engulfs them. Meanwhile, Jinho walks back into the room, arms full of snacks, only to be greeted by a huge high orc staring right at him. They lock eyes in pure confusion. The orc, completely unfazed, casually snatches a snack from Jinho's hand and eats it in one bite. Back in the gymnasium, Mami-cha stares around in shock, wondering how Drippy Woo had done that. Drippy Woo internally was celebrating his successful experiment that confirmed his theory that shadow exchange works like a portal, meaning he can transport people with him. He refocused and told Mami-cha it was game time. Mami-cha frowns, telling him that she doesn't have a weapon. Jinwoo's eyes sparkled as he asked her if she was talking about the pickaxe. She looks at him, all embarrassed, telling him that wasn't her weapon. Mami-cha lets out an annoyed sigh before heading to the storage room. She glances over the collection. The weapons aren't great, but they'll do. Picking out a sword, she steps back into the gym, ready. Mr. Power Farmer eyes the blade. He asks her if she was sure, as this wasn't her usual weapon. Mami-cha doesn't even hesitate, telling him that it doesn't matter, as the monsters never fight on our terms anyway, so she'll make do with what she has. He respects the answer. Jinwoo knew that an ordinary summon wouldn't cut it. He needs to give her a real challenge. He raises his hand. Summoning Igris, he told Mami-cha that among my soldiers he is the best swordsman. And just like that, the room darkens as Igris steps forward. Mami-cha, sizing him up, asks, "What are the conditions for winning or losing?" Jinwoo lays down the rules for her, saying that you either win by destroying the summon or lose when you surrender. Although he had promised that he'd use his strongest summon, but throwing Baru at Mami-cha would just be bullying, so he decided against it. Once they're both ready, Jinwoo signals the fight to begin, but the moment Mami-cha starts gathering energy, something clicks. Weapons don't matter, huh? That line keeps playing in his head. He suddenly stops them. Jinwoo reached into his inventory. Out comes the Demon King's long sword, a weapon that could turn most hunters into dust with a single swing. He tosses it to Igris. Igris doesn't waste a second, activating the sword's ability and sending a powerful wave of electricity straight at Mami-cha. But before it can land, she dodges easily. Jinwoo watches, impressed, thinking how she's expected to be. She's fast. If that had even grazed a normal hunter, they'd be toast. The battle escalates, and with every clash of blades, the sound echoes through the building. This, of course, does not go unnoticed. In his office, Chairman Goff frowns, as no one was supposed to be in the gym today. He calls for the CCTV feed, and when the footage pops up, he's greeted by the sight of Mr. Power Farmer and Mami-cha fighting. As he watches them, a memory resurfaces of Chai's face when she found out Jinwoo was the one who saved her. He chuckles, thinking how he really was blind. With a smirk, he orders the cameras shut off and the logs changed to say no inspection took place. He leans back, content to let the chaos unfold. Meanwhile, in the gym, Jinwoo is staring at something he hadn't expected. Mami-cha had beaten Igris and was standing victorious over him. She dusts herself off, looking at Jinwoo expectantly. She asked Jinwoo if this really was his strongest shadow. She knew Drippy Woo was holding back, and she wasn't having it. She told Jinwoo to summon his strongest shadow. Jinwoo hesitates. He told Mami-cha that she might get hurt, but Mami-cha laughed and told him that she'll be fine. Jinwoo's expression shifts as a dark aura swirls behind him. Shadows rise and a chilling presence fills the room as Beirut emerges. Jinwoo looks her dead in the eyes and asks her again if she is sure about it, but Mami-cha wasn't backing down. That's when the air got heavy, the lights dimmed, and a dark aura swirled behind Jinwoo as he summoned Boo. Jinwoo even checked with Mami-cha. He again asked her if she was sure that she wanted to do this. Because while most shadow soldiers were weaker versions of their living selves, this bug was created in the depths of hell specifically to destroy hunters. If he went all out, Mami-cha's chances weren't just slim, they were practically non-existent. But my glorious king ordered Beirut to just defeat Mami-cha and not to harm her, saying that if he does, life won't be easy for him. Boo, being the dramatic bug he was, put on his puppy face, but he also whipped out his claws, ready to go overboard. Then he let out a loud screech that shattered every light and window in the building. Mami-cha stood there, processing this like, Jinwoo actually fought this thing. Meanwhile, fully transformed, showing off his intimidation stats, but Jinwoo immediately weakened him like a developer working overtime. He told Boo to put those claws away. Life's gonna get real hard if you scratch her during the test. Boo, scared straight, retracted his claws instantly. Mami-cha, seeing an opening, rushed at him. But before she could blink, Boo had already teleported behind her. Mommy Cha thought this again. She wasn't gonna fall for the same trick twice, or so she thought, swinging her sword. But Boo caught it like it was a toy and casually let it go. Then, just a flex, he turned to Jin Woo and said, "Give me the word, and I'll humble her without even touching her." And oh, did he mean that? Mommy Cha kept attacking, but Boo didn't even need to move. He just casually dodged everything like he had ultra instinct on at all times. Then, out of nowhere, he got all up in her personal space and let out a banshee scream so loud it sent her flying. My glorious king, who was watching everything from the sidelines, realized that the bug was out of control and he had to step in. But Mommy Che wasn't about to take that loss. She stood up, still determined, and Jin Woo could only wonder what she was thinking. Bo, on the other hand, wasn't questioning a damn thing. He went full predator mode and charged, spitting some philosophical nonsense about prey and predators. Mommy Cha barely dodged, then gathered up all the energy she had left and launched an attack. It hit, but Beiru's exoskeleton was built different. Due to the impact, her sword broke like cheap plastic. But that was her plan. She baited him, using her skill Sword of Light, and finally managed to pierce through his armor. That should have been a win, but instead, it triggered Boo's old queen-issued programming. Suddenly, all that loyalty to Jin Woo took a back seat, and Beiru muttered, "This woman is my enemy." And that was when Hardao Pain got serious. His aura flared and he was about to go for the kill. Jin Woo ordered him to stop, but Beiru wasn't hearing it. Mommy Che closed her eyes, ready to accept her fate, when suddenly an explosion occurred. When she opened her eyes, Jin Woo was standing there, having blocked the attack like it was just another Tuesday. Bo, snapping out of it, immediately dropped to his knees begging for forgiveness. But Jin Woo wasn't even mad. He was too busy looking at Mommy Cha. He wondered why she was trying this hard. "This is just a test for my nameless guild, not life or death." "What are you doing all this for?" Then this idiot straight up asked her if she was into him. As Jin Woo asked that question, Mamika X stopped working. Jin Woo, still not convinced, thought to himself that it can't be. An absolute queen like Mommy Che can't be interested in someone like him, but before he could process it, she hit him with the softest, quietest, "I think that might be the case." The scene shifts to good old America, where Michael Connor and Mrs. Sellner meet with David, the director of the Federal Bureau of Hunters. David, looking like a man who's about to have a headache, asks why they failed to recruit Jin Woo. Michael, clearly still recovering from the trauma, explains that according to Mrs. Sellner's observations, my glorious king is one of the top dogs. The director raises an eyebrow, questioning if that means Jin Woo is on par with national-level hunters. Sellner sighs and starts explaining what she saw when she peeked into Jin Woo's soul, saying, "Normally, awakened hunters borrow power from a place called the other side, and she can sense that connection. Some hunters shine like beacons, radiating energy so intense she calls them kings. But Jin Woo's connection was non-existent. Instead, the moment she looked into his eyes, the abyss stared back at her. He wasn't connected to the darkness. He was the darkness." The director, suddenly realizing how ominous that sounds, hesitantly asks if that makes Jin Woo evil. Mrs. Sellner shakes her head, saying that he is not evil, just different. Every other hunter borrows power. Jin Woo is power. He's not bound by any external connection, which means there's no limit to his growth. Michael, now visibly sweating, confirms, "So you're telling me there's no cap to his strength?" Mrs. Sellner nods. David takes a deep breath, thanks her for the info, and tells Michael to follow him. It was time for Plan B. They descend to level 24, a basement straight out of a secret government horror movie. David, still thinking about how to handle Jin Woo, tells Michael they need a new approach, asking him if he remembers the first ever S-rank gate. Michael nods, saying it was quite hard to forget, as that disaster wiped out the entire West Coast. David recounts how America recruited the strongest hunters in the world for that raid, promising them wealth beyond imagination. Only 5 survived, and they were rewarded with authority equal to an entire nation. Thus, the birth of national-level hunters. Then came Kamish, the unquenchable flame, the dragon that turned top-rank hunters into charcoal. Hundreds died fighting it, but in the end, there was a silver lining. As the elevator doors open, Michael's eyes widened. There, preserved in cold storage like a legendary relic, is a runestone carved from Kamish's corpse. David smirks, thinking how it's been 80 years, and we still don't have a mage-class national-level hunter. But Kamish is about to give this great nation one last gift. Meanwhile, Jin Woo stands in the shower, staring at his reflection like he just unlocked a new DLC skin. He can't believe a girl actually confessed to him. Him, the guy who spent years being treated like dungeon fodder, and not just any girdle, someone like Mommy Cha. He begins examining himself. His height soared upward, his body became sculpted, and even his complexion cleared up, like he just completed a K-beauty marathon. Perhaps it's all the boost from his drive to endure. He's lost in reflection when a notion hits. He strides into Jinna's room, saying, "How would you score me?" Jinna, not even glancing up, questions, "And what?" Jin Woo, completely earnest, replies, "My appeal." She finally gazes at him and then erupts in laughter. She asked where this boldness was coming from, stating that to her, he'll still seem like a slob. Jinwoo's pride takes a direct blow. Jinwoo casually drops a shocker on Gina, informing her he's planning to launch his own crew. She raises an eyebrow, asking if he's aiming to be the head hunka now. She teases, already messaging her pal about this hot gossip. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, utterly serious, asks what she thinks of the name Lone Star Guild. Gina shoots him a look of pure letdown, questioning what had possessed his fool head when he thought up that name. Jinwoo actually ponders this and sees she's got a point. He requests ideas, and she tosses out Ajin crew, explaining that A means self and Jin means to advance. Jinwoo mulls it over, liking the ring of it. Meanwhile, across town, Mommy Chai is in total frenzy mode. She's flopping around on her bed like a fish, replaying today's happenings in her mind, wondering if Jinwoo will think she's nuts after she basically admitted her feelings to Drippy Woo. But then she reasons, Jinwoo did save her life. It's only natural she'd be curious. Yeah, no, she's toast. Then, in the midst of her meltdown, something snaps. When she was out cold, she saw something, a hand reaching out, a voice begging her to tell Jinwoo something. She recalls and realizes it was Bong Yu. He was urging her to warn Jinwoo that he must be wary of the strength inside him. The next day, over at the Knight's Crew HQ, Park Jing-soo and Yang Yunai are discussing a portal that appeared in their area. The issue is, getting a raid license won't be simple since, according to the Hunters group, it's nearly an S-rank portal. Jing-soo, fully aware that if they mess this up, the Fame crew will swoop in and snatch the spotlight. He's about to lose his cool over the idea of handing another crew a win when a woman casually suggests, why not form a partnership? Jing-soo quickly brushes off the idea, unsure if any crew would join forces with them when it's clear they can't handle it solo. Then it dawns on him Jinwoo. Yang Yerim grins knowing it might work, aware that teaming up with Jinwoo could be a PR jackpot, but calling him like a clingy ex feels wrong. Instead, he decides they're showing up in person. Meanwhile, Jinwoo and Jinho are finalizing the crew name. Jinwoo proposes Ajin and Jinho nods eagerly, internally thinking anything beats Lone Star Guild. With that decided, Jinwoo says they need one more member to make it official. Jinho instantly asks, what about Mommy Chai? Jinwoo shakes his head saying she's not who he had in mind. Jinho looks at him like he just broke a major law, thinking how Mommy Chai was an S rank, a dungeon raid icon and stunningly gorgeous, wondering what kind of nut would pass her up. Out loud he just asks who exactly was he seeking. Jinwoo just shrugs and says, someone with a hunter's permit, not too caught up in crew duties, and, most crucially, someone he can rely on. Jinho blinks as he actually knows a few folks who fit that profile. Before they can dive into it, there's a knock at the door. Jinwoo sighs, already steeling himself. Mentally, he was hoping it wasn't Mommy Cha again. He opens it. Instead of Mommy Cha, standing there were Park Jing-soo, Yang Yerim, and Yang Yunai. Park Jing-soo introduced himself as the crew leader of the Knight's crew. Jinwoo and Jinho exchanged looks, wondering why on earth they came all this way. After introductions, they sit down, and Park Jing-soo starts explaining the situation to my splendid king. He pulls out a clip of the huge portal that recently popped up in Korea, pointing out how it's emitting a crazy amount of magical energy. Jinwoo, always direct, asks if it's an S-rank portal. Park Jing-soo says no, but it's dangerously close, adding that it's the biggest A-rank portal ever to appear in Basuzan. Hearing that, Jinwoo briefly considers swinging by Mommy Jui's place like old times and getting her to treat him to some sushi. Meanwhile, Park Jing-soo is still talking, explaining that the Hunters group won't grant their crew a raid license since they lack an S-rank hunter. That's where Jinwoo comes in. He wants Jinwoo to join the raid to secure the portal. In the back, Yang Yerim is busy fangirling, debating whether to ask for Jinwoo's signature or a photo. Park Jing-soo lays out the terms, telling Jinwoo that typically an S-rank hunter gets 10% of the share, but he's willing to offer Jinwoo 20%. Jinwoo doesn't even flinch before countering with a 50-50 split, adding that the deal must be with his crew, not just him personally. He casually mentions he's just founded the Ajin crew. Park Jing-soo, realizing he's not dealing with a pushover, tries to haggle, suggesting 40-60 instead, but Jinwoo shuts that down fast, reminding him he's not the one needing help here. Park Jing-soo, now sweating, agrees on the condition that Jinwoo handles the boss battle. With that settled, Park Jing-soo tells him they need to start the raid by tomorrow at the latest and asks Jinwoo to come with them immediately. But Jinwoo, being Jinwoo, says he has something to handle, so he'll meet them tomorrow directly at Basuzan. Park Jing-soo, realizing he has no leverage, just nods. Meanwhile, Jinwoo gets a call from his mom. He asks if she got a new phone and if she called by mistake, but she just tells him to have supper with her tonight. Jinwoo, who'd battle world-ending beasts but never defy his mom, agrees. Fast forward to the next day. The Knight's crew is stationed near the Basuzan portal, surrounded by a huge crowd. Their hunters are making last-minute preparations, while Park Jing-soo, already in his gear, is glaring at his phone, muttering how they should have made Drippy Woo come with them yesterday. He keeps checking the time, grumbling about whether Jinwoo will be late, before finally saying, "We'll leave in 5 minutes." Meanwhile, Jinwoo, still at home, is casually preparing. He looks outside and wonders if Gina took an umbrella with her. The scene shifts to Gina's school, where a group of students is roaming the hallways, complaining about how their art teacher is making them do all the work he should be doing himself. They enter a dusty, old classroom that's been deserted all semester. One student spots something in the corner. A portal had appeared. He points it out to his friends, and in true horror movie style, decides to walk right up to it. Trying to be bold, he asks his friends if they're scared approaching the portal. He says the portal is sealed and won't open for at least a week. Only hunters can go in or out. That's when one of his friends mutters that this place has been ignored for months, but none of them notice the cracks forming on the portal seal. Then, without warning, a hand shoots out from the portal, grabbing the nearest student by the head. He struggles trying to break free, but it's too late. His friends watch in terror as the creature inside the portal tightens its grip and crushes his skull like a soda can. As the students saw monsters crawling out of the portal, chaos erupted. The monsters were buzzing, practically vibrating at the scent of fresh prey. But these two were just scouts. Their bloodlust was urging them to start the carnage, but they had a task first. One of them sniffed the air, locking onto the humans inside the building. Looking around, he muttered to his partner how he thinks this place is built like a fortress. Then, turning to his companion, he told him to summon the others while he stayed and began an early feast. And with that, he stepped out, eyes already fixed on some unlucky students. Before they could even grasp their fate, the beast was already on them. Meanwhile, Jinwoo arrived at the scene, taking one look at the enormous portal. He thought about how this portal really was huge, giving it a quick glance. Then his eyes swept over to the team assembled for this raid. The place was teeming with miners, collectors, and a strong lineup of 13 A ranks and 20 B ranks. Seeing the number of A rank hunters present, Jinwoo was surprised. But then, in true Jinwoo style, he just shrugged it off, thinking it was expected as they were one of the top 5 crews after all. But before he could take another breath, he got swarmed by hunters. They hit him with a barrage of questions, practically desperate to know if he was leading this raid. Jinwoo, who absolutely didn't sign up for a press conference, just blinked in confusion. That's when Yang Yame stepped in, like a teacher breaking up an overly excited class. She introduced herself as an A-rank healer from the Knight's crew, giving Jinwoo a polite nod while the other hunters still eyed him like a rare collectible. Then Park Yong-soo stepped up, declaring he'd be leading the raid. The crew members immediately started whispering and side-eyeing, murmuring how they think Jinwoo should lead, as he's the S rank here. But Park Yong-soo shut it down, assigning Jinwoo to the rear as a safety net. That was practically an insult to every A rank in the room. Then one of the A ranks scoffed, saying they don't need a babysitter, as they're plenty strong. Yong-soo, realizing he might have just bruised their egos, tried to explain that this was just their crew's usual style. Jinwoo just shrugged, thinking the hunters seemed confident. With that settled, the group moved out, heading into the dungeon. Cut to the Hunter Association's emergency call center, where a phone operator picked up a distress call. The shaky, terrified voice of a girl came through. The voice told the operator about the crisis, begging for help. The operator, instantly grasping how dire the situation was, asked for her location immediately. She then tried to calm the girl and asked where exactly she was. The girl, barely holding it together, whispered she was hiding in a restroom. She said she was with her friend, but the monsters killed her. The operator reassured her, saying hunters were already on the way. The operator then asked if she could describe the monsters. The girl hesitated, then said, "They're green. I saw them on TV before." As the operator heard that, her blood ran cold. Green skin and orcs, she realized how bad things were. The situation just went from bad to absolute chaos real fast. The operator then told the girl to run immediately. But it was too late. The girl's scream tore through the line as an orc found her. The operator sat frozen, horror washing over her as the line went dead. Back at the school, chaos ruled. Students who weren't already torn apart were scrambling for any exit, while the orcs leisurely picked off those trapped inside. One of them grumbled he wasn't happy that half his prey had escaped, but there were still plenty of targets, and the slaughter continued. The orcs, feeling overly confident, decided to block every escape route just to make this massacre extra brutal. Meanwhile, the students were pulling a last-ditch barricade, everything strategy, stacking tables and chairs like it would stop literal monsters. An orc kicked down the door like he was collecting rent, stepping in drenched in blood and ready to make it rain. The students froze, terror plastered on their faces. One kid saw his chance and bolted for the window, thinking he could hero his way out. But the moment he got close, 2 glowing red eyes locked onto him from outside. He barely had time to process his doom before an axe came flying at his skull, ending his escape attempt in a single brutal second. More orcs stormed in, surrounding the trapped students like wolves in a pen. One of them sniffed the air, catching a whiff of magic power. Pointing to Song, he told the other orc to kill her first. Gina and Hanny were backed into a corner. Gina called out desperately for her brother, while Hanny, realizing there was no way out, took a deep breath. She thought to herself, even if I'm low rank, I'm still awakened. She was about to step forward and fight the orcs. Gina tried to stop her, but the orcs were already closing in. The orc asked, "Is this the human you sensed?" Eyeing Hansoni with mild disappointment. The other orc shook his head. "No, there's something much stronger right next to her." His eyes locked onto Gina. He then muttered, "The smell is coming from that girl. She must die." With zero hesitation, he swung his axe at her. Gina squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the worst. But the impact never came. When she dared to look, a massive high orc stood in front of her, having blocked the attack like it was nothing. Her brain froze for a second before she realized this was her brother's doing. He had stationed his soldiers around her, knowing something like this might happen. The high orc didn't waste time. With one clean punch, he sent the attacking orc flying, literally through the ceiling, leaving everyone, monsters included, stunned in shock. The remaining orcs, now realizing they might not be the biggest threats in the room, turned their attention back to Gina. 3 of them, huge and snarling, stepped forward. The real fight was just getting started. Back in the dungeon, Park Yongu barely had time to yell, "It's an ogre," before the squad faced a towering, 2-headed beast, looking like it skipped leg day but maxed out on upper body strength. The creature swung its weapon like it was swatting flies, but Yongsu used his skill and threw up a barrier just in time. The ogre smashed into it with all its might, but the shield held firm. Yai, feeling a burst of confidence, sprinted up the monster's axe like it was a parkour course, blinded one of its ugly heads, and shouted for everyone to go wild. The hunters wasted no time. Blades flew, spells lit up the room, and the ogre got turned into a roasted mess. Once the dust settled, Yongsu called for a regroup, looking more stressed than he should have been. With a portal that massive, he had expected it to be tough, but a 2-headed ogre right at the start, yeah, not great. He then quizzed Jin Woo, like it was a classroom. "Do you know their other name?" Jin Woo, unfazed, answered, "Gravekeepers." And right on cue, Yongsu pointed out the next problem. If there was a Gravekeeper, that meant an undead army wasn't far behind. Before he could finish the thought, the undead squad showed up. But, oddly, they didn't attack. They just stood there, staring like characters that hadn't been programmed to move yet. The hunters backed away, whispering about how weird this was. But Jinwoo just sighed in disappointment. He had high hopes for a dungeon this size, and so far, it wasn't living up to its hype. Just then, Jinwoo was hit with a realization that something was wrong, and it didn't take him long to figure out exactly what was off. He turned to Yongsu and said something urgent had come up, and he had to leave. Hearing that, Yongsu panicked and said to Drippy Woo, "Bro, you can't just abandon us here. We might die without you." Jinwoo, completely unbothered, just smirked and said he'd leave behind someone just as dependable as him. Before anyone could ask what that meant, a familiar, terrifying presence appeared. The Jeju Island raid MVP himself, Beirut. The hunters froze. They knew exactly who this was. Seeing they recognized Beirut, Jinwoo just said, "So, no introduction needed." He then told the hunters that Beirut was in charge now and would protect them. Beirut, thrilled at the chance to stretch his claws, let out a deafening roar before launching into a slaughter. The splendid king then summoned a few more of his soldiers and, turning to the hunters, said, "These guys will help you. 20 should be enough for this dungeon." After that, he turned to leave, but the hunters, now visibly panicked, tried to stop him. Yonggu asked Jinwoo if he was really going to leave after unleashing all these shadows. Jinwoo, suddenly annoyed, gave them a deadly glare and said, "I can dismiss them if you want," his voice dripping with irritation. Checking his shadow exchange cooldown, he saw he had 1 hour and 42 minutes left, so he started sprinting toward the exit. Yongsu, still in disbelief, could only watch as Jinwoo left. As he ran, Jinwoo's instincts screamed at him. He kept getting signals from the shadow soldiers he left with Gina. "This is bad," he thought, his gut twisting with unease. Then a wall of undead blocked his path. That was the last straw. Jinwoo roared, ordering them to move out of his way. And, to his absolute shock, the undead obeyed. They knelt before him like he was their ruler. Seeing them follow his command, Jinwoo wondered, are they bowing because I'm a high-class necromancer, or do I have some kind of passive leader ability? But he didn't have time for theories. He ignored the kneeling zombies, leaped over them, and called out Kaisel. The moment the wyvern appeared, the entire dungeon buzzed with excitement. Everyone recognized Jinwoo's signature ride. Jinwoo ordered Kaisel to go full speed ahead. Then, just to be extra, he boosted the wyvern's stats by 50% so they could fly even faster. Meanwhile, inside, the shadow orcs were cleaning up the monster infestation like janitors on a mission. The students, still trying to process that monsters just saved them, were looking at the orcs like characters who just glitched out of their villain role. Gina, running purely on little sister energy, sprinted up to one of the orcs, calling for Jin Woo, but the orc gave her the silent treatment and just pointed at the door. Just then, footsteps echoed through the hallway. Somewhere else, a different orc sat on his makeshift throne, giving dramatic villain speeches about how the final limits had been lifted and how nothing could stop him now. Bro was feeling himself way too much. But just as he was hyping himself up, his minion hit him with bad news. He told the chief that outside, some high orc warriors were helping humans. The chief, already mad that his epic moment was being ruined, scoffed at the idea that his squad couldn't handle 3 measly high orcs. He grabbed his weapon, talking about leading the charge like he was some warlord about to rewrite history. Meanwhile, in a dungeon, the hunters were losing their minds as insect monsters swarmed around them. Park Jong-soo tried to play it cool, saying they couldn't back down now because of public opinion. But before he could keep up the act, Beirut casually showed up, teleporting right in front of him so fast that Bro folded like a cheap chair. Without a word, Beirut just tossed him the Death Knight's severed head. Park Jong-soo stared at it like it was an eviction notice, realizing that Beirut didn't just defeat the strongest monster in the dungeon. He did it so fast it wasn't even a warm-up. Back at the school, things were going south fast. The Shadow High Orcs were trying to hold the line against the chief. But this guy was built different. He started bragging about how his tattoos were proof of his wins, basically saying, "I crush weaklings for fun." Then he attacked, taunting the High Orcs to entertain him, only for one of them to actually block his strike. Chief was impressed for like half a second before deciding he'd had enough, slicing them apart with ease. But then the Shadow Soldiers started regenerating, and Bro had a full-on existential crisis. No matter how much he cut them down, they just got back up. The whispers in his head, urging him to kill humans, were getting louder, and he realized something was off. If these guys were moving because of magic, all he had to do was cut off the source. His eyes locked onto Gina, who was hiding behind the High Orcs, and he instantly made her his next target. His minions swarmed the shadows, overwhelming them just long enough for him to grab Gina like a horror movie villain. He sensed the magic power in her, thinking he'd found the answer. But just as he was about to end her, something outside the window made him freeze. His expression twisted in pure shock. The real nightmare had arrived, and the second his eyes locked onto it, he knew he was about to get humbled. The aura alone hit him like a debt collector at his doorstep. Trembling like a side character in the wrong genre, he barely choked out a warning, telling his minions that something is coming, something terrifying. His minions barely had time to react before Jin Woo and Kaisel crashed through the building like an unskippable cutscene. The impact alone sent the orc chief flying across the room, reminding him what it feels like to be irrelevant. Meanwhile, Mr. Ara Farmer himself ignored the mess and walked straight to Gina. His presence alone made the air feel 10 times denser. Without speaking, he softly tapped her head. The classic anime hero gesture for, "Everything's okay now." At this point, Drippy Woo's vibe was so overwhelming, it could have been another strike. The orc leader, who was all bluster moments ago, was now sweating buckets, his entire life flashing before his eyes. He pushed himself to overcome the dread, standing tall like he still had a shot. With whatever pride he had left, he opened his mouth to present himself. But Jin Woo was in no mood for minor character chatter. His eyes gleamed with pure threat as he interrupted him mid-sentence. "Be quiet and stay put." Raizu turned to his little sister, who was still trembling like a leaf just out of an episode 4 horror. He pulled her into a close embrace, murmuring that he was sorry for arriving late. Mr. Aura Farmer then turned to the other students and asked if they were holding up okay or not. Then he finally faced Song Yi, who looked like she'd just seen the end of the world up close. Noticing the red mark on Jinna's face, my noble king's vibe turned deadly. Without pause, he called forth the true Aura Farmer, Igris, and commanded him to guard Gina. Then, turning to the rest of his troops, he ordered them to escort the students to safety. My noble king could hardly contain his fury as he did. Then a reckless orc dared to stir. The poor soul was far too overcome by Rise's vibe. Razuz's voice sliced through the room like a death verdict, reminding the orc he'd been told not to move. As Jinwoo had directed, the shadow troops began leading the students out of the classroom through the corridor he'd just created using Kaisel as a makeshift elevator. The orc leader finally stepped forward, trying to seem bold. "So, those undying high orcs were your warriors. Who are you and how do you know our tongue?" Drippy Woo wasn't in the mood for a question-and-answer session. His stare alone was enough to make the orc perspire, realizing this was a one-sided slaughter. Desperate, the leader shouted for his followers to charge. One swung an axe, but Rezi Wu grabbed his hand and crushed it like a tin can before slamming the orc into the ground. Then, without effort, he stomped his head into mush. Seeing how their ally met his doom, the other orcs tried to rush Jin Woo. But my noble king handled them using Dominator's touch. He held them in the air and, with a casual grip, they burst like overripe tomatoes. And then the carnage began. Jinwoo started erasing the orcs from existence one by one, until only one terrified orc remained. With a threatening look in his eyes, he approached the last orc using Dominator's touch.